Once you get to the day 3 of the NFL draft, and especially as you get to the later portions, round 6 and 7 in particular, you have a couple of different approaches and philosophies you could take. Number one, you can focus on guys that you had rated much higher on the board that just happen to fall for one reason or another. Or you're looking for guys that can add some depth, provide some value as a backup on special teams. You're also looking at guys that might fit your system very well, but they lack this key trait or that key trait, or maybe a couple of key traits, but you should still think can potentially make it. Or sometimes you just gamble on a guy because you say it's a late round pick. If we miss on it, nobody's going to remember. But this dude is such a freak athlete that if we can teach him how to actually play the game and actually play at his position, then we're going to look like geniuses. Well, in the case of Duke Shelley, the corner from Kansas State, let's face it, a lot of draft people hadn't talked about him very much. A lot of Bears fans weren't really familiar with him. But ultimately, he's the type of guy that I think fits into a couple of those things that I kind of tick mark there. A guy that lacks a key trait or two, in particular size, which could kind of restrict and limit him to the role that he plays in an NFL defense, but also a guy that was productive, that was quality, that you could see fitting Chuck Pagano's defense and saying, here's a guy that has the ability to contribute as a special teamer. Here's a guy that can potentially contribute as a backup right away. Here's a guy with some projectability and where he might not be ever a star. You feel like he has the potential to outplay his draft position. And that's what I look at when I see Duke Shelley. Another pick that the more I watched him, the more I looked at him, the more I came away pretty impressed with the fact that the Bears were able to get him in the 6th round. Because when I look at him, when you talk about corners, especially for a guy like him, all of maybe 5'9", 175 pounds or so, he better be able to do a lot of other things in order to compensate for that sheer lack of size. Well, the first thing he does is he plays the ball really, really well. He has really, really good ball skills. He has a plus ability to locate the ball and then actually make plays on the ball. He had 39 career passes defended, 8 interceptions, which is not exactly anything to sneeze at. And when you're talking about a corner that projects more as a nickel dime slot type of guy, you want a guy that can play well on the ball. And Duke Shelley most certainly can do that. He's got really fluid hips and decent footwork to be able to turn out of his back pedal and run with other wide receivers. He's got that short area change of pace and change of direction ability that you really need to be an effective slot corner in today's NFL. Because let's face it, when guys are playing out of the slot, it gets a little more open. It's a little bit harder to jam them. It's a little harder to press them. Guys are just going to be able to catch the ball on you sometimes. As a result, you want a guy defending them that can minimize that damage, that can minimize that space. And Duke Shelley has the ability to do that with his solid back pedal, with his fluid hips to be able to turn out of that back pedal and run. And then on top of that, you factor in very good initial quickness, not elite level stuff, but really good initial quickness and definitely enough speed to defend deep to be able to turn and run. You know, when you talk about guys that he's going to be going up against in the slot in the NFL, he can run with the vast majority of them. And you talk about getting a guy like that around number 6, but not just a quickness, speed type of guy, a guy that has the ability to turn and run, has some good fundamentals, has the ability to play the ball. You got to like that. You got to like that. I also like, too, is even though he's a smaller dude, he's not afraid to use the old hit stick. He plays with physicality, and he brings it as a tackler as much as he possibly can out of his 5'9", 175-pound or so frame. Not quite to an Antoine Winfield type of level, but you get the point. Is being a small guy, you really worry about having him on the field in running situations. Well, he's a guy that you can at least have confidence in is going to get in there, stick his nose in there, and try to make the play. And he's actually more effective than you might think as a tackler in the open field. And again, talk about defending guys in the slot. It's about getting those guys in the slot so they can get the ball in their hands and then they can run after the catch. Duke Shelley's the type of guy that has some of the ability to be able to turn and run with these slot wide receivers, change direction quickly, and then also be able to get his hands on them and help bring them down so that way it minimizes the damage after the catch. So I look at those traits and I say, you know what? He most certainly is worth a flyer in round number 6. Here's what concerns me about his game is that lack of size and length pretty much does, I think, limit him to a slot role where at times he plays a little bit bigger than his size. He doesn't play that much bigger than his size to where you can feel truly confident that he would be a guy that you want to put on the outside against 6'3", 6'4" wide receivers. That lack of length and height and overall strength can really lead to some struggles against bigger wide receivers. He can really have challenges with them. They get too much into his body. They can kind of ragdoll him at times, which again, you hope to mitigate by playing him in the slot. But if you did have to play him outside or you had bigger wide receivers playing him in the slot, you could get a little concerned with that. He can also struggle to contest the ball at its highest point. While he's got really good ball skills, again, if you're talking about a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver that he's on, he's not that explosive where he's going to be able to overcome that much of a size differential to be able to go up and get the ball and make a ton of plays on it in that way. And then when you look at him in the running game, because of that lack of length, that lack of size and strength, he's going to have trouble taking on blockers in the running game. At times he can get engulfed and he can get washed out. And then as a tackler, you have to be at his size, you have to be really, really sound from a technique standpoint, and you have to tackle bigger than you are. And while I like the fact that he brings physicality to the position and that he plays hard-nosed and he tries to play bigger than his size, at times it shows on film where he just is unable to complete the tackle. He is unable to completely wrap up and stop the play there. More of a guy that you like to come in and help finish off a play than he is a pure stalwart as an open field tackler. Not a deal killer, but something that is concerning that I think in part helped contribute him being a 6th round pick. But when I look at him though, I think Duke Shelley is one of those guys that it can be very easy to focus on the obvious negatives or the obvious concerns, or the obvious things he can't do, and ignore the things that he can. And we get very guilty of that, I think, when it comes to evaluating draft prospects. And we just look at that in life in general. It's all about perspective. As humans, we tend to gravitate towards the negativity. It's why the uplifting positive things, a lot of times on social media, on YouTube and what forth, can potentially make people feel good about themselves and think the world is a better place than it actually is. And they'll kind of go viral. But it's the fails and the fights and the screw-ups and the F-ups that really truly go viral more often than not. Because again, as humans, our nature is to tend to go to the negativity. But I want to focus on what Duke Shelley can do. Because again, he's got good quickness. He's got speed. He does play bigger than his size. He's got good change of direction, change of pace, fluid hips to be able to turn and run. Very key, important things out of the corner position, whether you're playing in the slot or whether you're playing outside. He's got plus ball playing skills. 39 career passes defended, 8 interceptions. You have higher level, higher talent corners get drafted much, much higher in the draft that don't have 8 career interceptions. Hell, they might not even have 4 of them, and they might not have half of the career passes defended that he did. He's shown a nose for the football to be able to go and make plays. And when I look at him, he was a guy that I had a 4th to 5th round grade on ultimately when watching him after evaluating him. So the Bears getting him in 6th round felt like pretty good value here. Here's a guy that I think you could, with his quickness and with his speed, you might entertain the thought of bringing him some out of the slot as a blitzer. Here's a guy that I envision long-term is going to be the Bears' starting nickel corner. I don't think it's going to take the full season, assuming he's healthy and assuming he's given the opportunity for him to ultimately unseat Buster Screen. And even if it doesn't happen in 2019, he'll probably be the starting slot corner in 2020. And again, if you're talking about as important as the slot corner position is in today's NFL, the fact that you're able to get that guy and get him at a decent level of play in round number 6 feels like, you guessed it, another Ryan Pace steal.